Welcome to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe my YouTube channel. A bloodbath erupted at his notorious Marylebone mansion in Portland Place, central London. The trouble is suspected to have involved drug dealers operating at the sex party. A group of men used knives to stab partygoers during the fight at 7 a.m. on Sunday. Cops and paramedics were called to the sleazy address, where Bonnie Blue recently slept with more than 1,000 men in 12 hours. Emergency workers were confronted with a bloodbath when they arrived. One source said, "There was blood everywhere with people lying injured all over the place. It looked like a battle scene rather than a sex club." 4 men were taken to hospital with injuries. 3 of them had stab wounds, though none of the injured were left in a life-threatening condition. Police arrested 3 men on suspicion of causing grievous bodily harm and drug supply offenses. A Met Police spokesperson said, "Police were called to an address at Portland Place, W1 at 07:00 HRS on Sunday, February 23 following reports of an assault. Officers attended with the London Ambulance Service and 4 men were taken to hospital. 3 of the victims had sustained stab wounds. Their injuries are not believed to be life-threatening. Police arrested 3 men, including 1 man on suspicion of GBH and possession with intent to supply, 1 man on suspicion of GBH and another man on suspicion of possession with intent to supply. It is understood the arrested men have been bailed. Police have taken out a Section 76 closure notice on the property to prevent access to it and the risk of further disruption. Convicted fraudster Davenport, 58, last year managed to stop police from shutting down his parties at the £15 million mansion. Officers had been called 63 times to incidents involving his property following parties, thanks to noise complaints, alleged drug use, and rowdy partygoers. The mansion block was used by 25-year-old Bonnie Blue, real name Tia Bellinger, to sleep with more than 1,000 men in 12 hours. She revealed how she was left covered in bruises and bite marks from the controversial sex marathon. Davenport told The Sun this week, "The whole day was the craziest I've ever experienced. Men queued from the basement to the top floor in balaclavas and a lot lost their virginities that day." Davenport, also known as Fast Eddie, made his name by organizing gatecrasher balls for wealthy young toffs in the late 1980s. He was convicted in 2011 of an advance fee fraud and jailed for 7 years and 8 months. The knife brawl erupted at Davenport's £15 million townhouse at 32 Portland Place. He previously owned a 24-bedroom mansion across the road at number 33, which was formerly owned by the Sierra Leone government. Dublin-born Davenport sold that property for £27 million in 2015 to settle a court order to pay the serious fraud officer £14 million over his conviction. He then bought the property at number 32, where neighbors say they have suffered years of very loud music, partygoers taking drugs and vomiting in the street. A closure hearing was told last year how police had been called to reports of 2 rapes at the address. One of them occurred in July last year when a woman snorted a line of cocaine in the bathroom and blacked out before discovering her knickers were ripped. When she regained consciousness, the court heard. And a man was killed in Lewisham after attending one of the parties, City of London Magistrates Court was told. The court heard the man was with 2 women and were followed from the party to their Airbnb in South London by robbers. He died after being bottled in the neck by the robbers as he tried to protect the women, Met neighborhood PC Hannah Fordham told the hearing. But magistrates refused to grant the closure order, saying the police case had not been proved beyond the balance of probability. The Met said it is now pursuing another closure order following the latest outbreak of trouble.
The Masquerade of Shadows. By Your Name. The opulence of Lord Eddie Davenport's mansion was legendary, whispered about in exclusive circles, and splashed across the tabloids when scandal demanded. Tonight, the whispers had come alive. The invitations, delivered in gilded envelopes, their calligraphy soaked in decadence, spoke only of one thing: the Masquerade of Shadows. It was not merely a party. It was a promise, an invitation to indulge in the most carnal pleasures, the kind that turned men into beasts and women into sirens. There were no rules, save for the masks that concealed identities and the willingness to surrender to the night, but what began in ecstasy would end in blood. The arrival. The entrance to Davenport's mansion was a cathedral to excess. Velvet ropes parted for those deemed worthy, their faces hidden behind elaborate Venetian masks adorned with gold, feathers, and filigree. The guests arrived in waves: tycoons, socialites, models, and criminals with pockets lined in silk and secrets. Inside, the atmosphere pulsed with low-lit sensuality. Chandeliers dripped crystals onto marble floors, and the air was thick with the mingling scents of perfume, sweat, and champagne. Candles flickered atop tables where guests played games of chance, stripping away their inhibitions with every losing hand. In the grand ballroom, silk-draped beds and gilded cages were set like stages for an audience with no interest in watching. The music throbbed, deep and intoxicating, as men and women disappeared behind veils and into shadows. At the heart of it all stood Lord Eddie Davenport himself, draped in a crimson velvet robe, his mask adorned with devil's horns. He moved through the crowd like a puppeteer, whispering invitations, touching shoulders, igniting flames in the eyes of those who longed to be consumed. Among the guests, 3 men stood apart: the players. James "Jimmy" Malloy, a former boxer turned enforcer, his nose crooked from a career of absorbing punches. He was broad, brutish, and had the silent menace of a man who had killed before. He wasn't here for pleasure. He was here for business. Victor Linsky, a hedge fund manager with a penchant for destruction, whether it be fortunes, reputations, or women. He was as charming as he was cruel, the kind of man who made enemies with a smirk. Elias Moreau, a French art dealer with debts that stretched from Paris to Macau. His desperation was hidden beneath tailored suits and a smooth tongue, but the walls were closing in. The 3 men did not arrive together, but fate, or something darker, had drawn them to the same place. The first cut. The first scream came from the mezzanine. A woman, half-naked and painted in gold, staggered back from a curtain-draped alcove, her hands slick with crimson. Gasps rippled through the crowd as a man stumbled out behind her, clutching his stomach. Blood seeped through his white silk shirt, a growing stain against the fabric. Victor Linsky swayed on his feet, his mask slipping to reveal wide, disbelieving eyes. He looked down at the handle of the knife protruding from his abdomen, a grotesque ornament in his flesh. Then he collapsed. The music stuttered but did not stop. The party had not yet decided if this was an accident, a performance, or something worse. Lord Eddie Davenport moved through the chaos, his grin never faltering. "Oh dear," he mused, kneeling beside Victor's twitching form. "It seems the night has claimed its first sacrifice." But Victor was not yet dead. His fingers clawed at the floor, his lips forming words that no one could hear. Above him, the masked figures had begun to shift, their excitement turning to unease. Then the second attack came. The riot begins. From the bar, Jimmy Malloy erupted like a beast uncaged, his fists hammering into the face of a man in a black jackal mask. The force of the blow sent teeth scattering onto the marble floor. "Where is he?" Jimmy bellowed. No one knew who he was, but the violence spread like fire. Drinks were thrown, screams echoed. Someone shattered a champagne bottle against the chandelier, raining glass down on writhing bodies. The masquerade descended into madness. Elias Moreau tried to slip through the chaos, but he felt the blade before he saw it, a sharp sting beneath his ribs. His hands flew to the wound, warmth spilling over his fingers. He turned, his vision blurring, and locked eyes with a masked figure whose smile was painted in red. Then he, too, fell. Lord of the carnage. Lord Eddie Davenport surveyed the carnage with the detached amusement of a man watching a play unfold exactly as he had envisioned. The blood, the screams, the sex-fueled violence, it was delicious. His eyes found Jimmy Malloy, still standing, his knuckles bloodied. "Ah, the lion refuses to be caged," Eddie mused. "Tell me, dear Jimmy, do you know why you were invited tonight?" Jimmy, panting, wiped blood from his lips. "I'm here for Victor." Eddie sighed, stepping over Elias's twitching body. "Well, I'm afraid he's beyond your reach now." He gestured toward Victor's slumped corpse, the knife still embedded in his gut. Jimmy's eyes burned with rage. "Who did this?" Eddie chuckled. Does it matter? This is what you came for, isn't it? Blood, revenge, the thrill of the hunt? Behind him, masked figures circled, their gazes hungry, waiting for the next act of violence. Jimmy spat on the floor. I didn't come for a game. Eddie's grin widened. Oh, but you did. Then the lights went out. The final cut. Darkness swallowed the room, but the violence did not stop. In the void, bodies clashed, metal kissed flesh, and breath was stolen with unseen hands.